Hello and welcome back to Park Junction. In the last video I was starting to think about the retaining walls which were going to sit behind the station. Here you can see I started to construct the retaining walls from plasticard, used stone effect, started to build these up, cutting the sections out as per my template. I've been using quarter around here to start building up the lower section of the wall, trying to add a bit of feature to it. Trialing the pieces in place to make sure they're coming to the right size. So slowly building up the walls, adding the buttresses now. So the buttresses were then glued to the wall, and here you'll be able to see that I started to put some strength in the pieces behind the back of the walls to hold them in place. Other bits I've been working on is a bridge here. This goes at the end of the station. So I've been putting in brick effect, measuring to the right size of the road, make sure that it fits for the engaged scale. So here it shows the retaining wall and the bridge in its desired location. Whilst in this bit, I had to look at how the road was going to lead into the station. So I started to construct a bit more of the retaining wall and also a lead down into the station. So this is a bit of the polystyrene here. So spacing everything out, making sure it all fits, make sure the road's going to run in correctly. The next part was then to take everything off and look at extending the ballast on the track. So this bit shows a little bit around how I did the ballasting and what's involved in this. You can see me at the moment just removing all the items from the railway, taking everything up. Again, lots of the parts that I use here were cardboard, so with the ballasting process they would get affected and all the ink would run. The station platforms are also made with cardboard fronts and top pieces. You can see in one of my other videos how I've made my station. They are made from plyboard, and then these are topped with scale scenes, I believe it is, covers, so for the platform tops and the platform fronts. I've designed these so that they can be taken off, and they're screwed down through the baseboard with 4 to 5 screws per platform. This allows me to take them off if I'm doing any work that will impact the printed card and paper fronts. Once everything is removed, I start looking at the bits I need to put on or where I want things to go. So things like cable trunking, the orange tubes that the cables will run out under will start being put in place. I'd start looking where junction boxes might go. So we'll try to find out where things go. I'll try different configurations, have a little look around, put things in different places. So once I've decided where everything's going, it's time to put things in place and fix them down. So for the orange cable tubes, I found the easiest way to start installing these or putting these through is to heat up a bit of track with a candle and then create the holes underneath the track so that I can then push the orange cable trunk underneath. You can see me doing that here where I'm heating up that bit of track and pushing the trunk in through the holes that I've made. Once this is done, I'll start sticking down other parts, putting in place the cable trunk in, so gluing the back of these. So these are the bits of cable trunking I've made myself. So I glue these down to the side of the track, and then once everything's in place and secured, I'll make sure that it's been left to dry for a while before I think about ballasting. I don't want anything moving through the ballasting process, so everything should be dry before we properly do that. Again, at this stage, if I was putting down electrical junction boxes or any other items that need to be, I'd put down the bases for these, make sure they're all set up and in the right place and aligned with the trunking. Again, it's worth taking your time doing this. Make sure you know what you want. So ballasting is done by how many people have shown on YouTube, so I've got a little ballasting tool here that I'm filling up with my ballast. This is just run along the track, and it puts the ballast in between the tracks and gives the shoulder that I want. On this, I've had to put some paper down the sides of the incline to stop the ballast falling between the risers that have been used. So I ballast up both tracks. Again, all of this is done in slightly quicker time than what it took me. It's worth spending time to get this right and get the ballast where you want. Again, checking all the parts as you go. Again, tapping the track with a spoon or some other implement helps the ballast to settle down. What you might need to do is put bits of ballast in between areas on the track where it falls through or settles down. In a few places here I had to put a little bit of glue in and fill up some of the holes where the ballast was falling through. Again, before you glue it down, it's worth getting the ballast off the sleepers. It makes it a lot easier afterwards to tidy up and get the trains running again. So again, tapping the track and brushing the ballast into place is worthwhile, and also making sure the ballast on the side is brushed in and how you want it. Again, use the normal sort of process of just spraying water onto the ballast. So this is just a sprayer I've got and just pure water, and then I'm using here a mix of PVA glue, water and a drop of washing up liquid. Again, I think I used about two parts water to 1 part PVA glue, but again it's more around having it at nice consistency that the glue goes down between the ballast. And again, you'll see that there's quite a lot of glue used in this process. The way I did this was running up and down the tracks, so I'd make sure that I'd run down the outside of the track first, then inside the track on one side, down the other side, making sure that I'm saturating and covering every bit of the track. Again, once you've done this, it looks a bit drastic, it looks very white. I was concerned the first time I did this on my trial piece, but it does work and it does dry to a clear consistency. So again, you can see the orange cable tubes and the trunking in place and the ballast done. So once the ballasting was done, it allowed me to start looking at building up the scenery around the sides of the track. Again, I used scrap bits of polystyrene here to start building it up, cutting it into shape with my hot wire cutter to cut the polystyrene. Once this was done, I just used plaster bandage. I get this from Hobbycraft to overlay the polystyrene. This is one of the first times I've really done this, so it's a bit of a learning experience for me. You'll see on the retaining wall I've covered it in cling film. So this was to allow me to put the plaster bandage up to the edge of the retaining wall. And I also did this with the retaining wall parts of the bridge as well at the end that you can't really see. So I slowly built up some layers of plaster bandage. I tried to get it as thick as 2 or 3 layers all over, making sure that I was merging these in and smoothing them down so the joins in the bandage were as minimal as possible. Whilst doing this, it does leave the texture of the plaster bandage a bit, which I wasn't too happy with. So a step that you don't see that I did after this was to get some or buy some sculptor mould, and again I covered all of the plaster bandage with a thin mould of sculptor mould. The plaster bandage also conforms quite closely to the polystyrene and gave quite an angular effect. Again, I wasn't the most happy about this, so the sculptor mould also helps to make this slightly more gentle and mould the scenery in a bit more. So this is the layout after I've done the plaster bandage. Again, You can see I've put some steps and other little bits in there to add some interest, and I've run down the side of the station as well to give some texture to the baseboard. Again, as I said, I put some sculptor mould on top after this, which took away some of the plaster bandage texture and also helped it conform more to how I wanted it to look. Between those two processes, I let the plaster bandage dry, and then after doing the sculptor mould, I let that dry, and then I started using Woodland Scenic's base colour. I just painted that on, covered all of the groundwork, because I do plan to static grass and flock it, but I haven't got that far yet, so you won't see that in this video. So this is just me tidying up some of the painted edges, painting up to the track, making sure it all blends in. It was amazing how much of a difference this made to the actual layout and the look of it. Here you can see down the side of the station, so what I want to do is, where I haven't painted a bit of an industrial site, so this will become tarmac. It'll be some of the old station buildings have been sold off into private ownership and becoming little businesses in their own right. So again, I'm just tidying up here and looking where things are going. Put down a bit of track that I've used this sculptor mould in between, so I'll need to tidy that up in the future. But you can start to see how this little bit of scene might start taking effect in the future. Here's some photographs of the layout. This is before I tidied up the edges, but it gives a few different angles of what I'm hoping it will look like, with some of the station pieces back in place. Again, I think just painting on the earth colours starts to really define what it will look like, so I'm looking forward to see what it looks like when it's fully flocked and static grassed as well. And they've got the grey of the car parks in place, so I'm quite happy with the way this is starting to turn out. So what's next? Painting up the retaining wall and the buildings that are going to form the industrial area. I've also started to create and paint the path that's going to go underneath the station. So this is starting to take place. Once these are in place, I'll hopefully be able to tarmac the actual park area in front of the station. This is some of the work that's going on the bridge. So starting to get the stone effect. I need to put in the mortar next. So maybe next time these will be on the railway as well, fixed in place. The retaining wall is in the same position as the bridge as well. These have the mortar put in, but I think it's starting to come together and look a bit more like a retaining wall. A little red brick building as well. And finally, this is before I started doing the work, and then a picture of what it's starting to turn out like now. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, and I look forward to making the next one. See you soon.